everybody, welcome back to Hope Cottage. So it has been a while since I've been on making videos, and today I was thinking I have been visiting most of the day with a sister about the topic of head covering. And back in the day when I had hundreds of videos on this channel, some of my most highly visited videos were on the subject of head covering. And so I know that it is a topic that is important to a lot of people. A lot of people have questions about wearing a head covering. They feel convicted. They don't know why, and they don't have, anyone else around them who is doing this, and it feels kind of weird. And so I would like to put up a video talking about my experiences with head covering, where I'm at with it now, and what I believe the Father used it for in my own life, what it taught me. Way back in 2011, I discovered the verses in 1 Corinthians on the topic of head covering. And I had never, I feel like I had read them before, but I had never really processed through, oh, is this instructions? Is this something that I should be doing? I never really thought about that before, right? I just kind of thought about it as these biblical people were doing that. And then I started to realize, there's some instructions in this book for me. And so I did have a lot of questions, and I immediately started wearing a head covering. I made myself kind of this little white covering with eyelet lace pattern on it, really cute. And I actually sell one of those in my shop now that's very similar. I kind of just realized that. Anyway, and I wore that, and I just started, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to figure out why am I doing this. And so I spent a really long time searching the scriptures, trying to get answers, from people around me, but no one I knew was doing this. The only people that I was familiar with that wore head coverings were the Amish and Mennonite communities, and I didn't know anybody in those communities, but nobody in my church was doing it. And it was something that I was like, wow, am I the only person that God is talking to about this? It was just kind of a strange time, because I knew that, he was speaking to my heart about this, but I couldn't understand why he wasn't speaking to anybody else's heart about this. I wore a head covering on and off for probably almost 10 years. And in all of that time, now and then I'd find someone who covered, and I felt, solidarity. And, I'd find a website, the head covering movement came out, and all these different resources and people saying different things. And I just never really had all of my questions answered in all that time and in all the searching that I did, but I still felt like it was something that the Father wanted me to do. And so I did it, except for when I got intimidated and didn't do it. It was such an uncommon thing in the communities that I was living in that sometimes I would even get to the point where I was questioning the truth of the word. Because I didn't see any, of my church leadership wearing a head covering. I didn't see any, big name church ladies or, famous musicians or anything like that, any other Christian women wearing a head covering. But I saw it right there in 1 Corinthians 11. It said, Paul's saying, do this stuff. And so it was very confusing, and it made me question the word. I just didn't know what was true and what was right. I would ask my husband about it, and he would just say, I don't know, do whatever you want. If God's leading you to do it, you better do it. If he's not, then do what you want. But he didn't really have an opinion. He mostly just wanted me to feel confident that I was doing what God wanted me to do. Now that I have grown a little and learned a little more about the character of God, I can really see how he used that as a next step in my future walk with him. Because the covering is weird, right? And unless you just are blessed enough to be in a community of people who, it's a regular thing, for the most part, it's weird, it's strange, it's different, it's not the norm. There are certain connotations that people put on women who wear a head covering. There are certain assumptions about her faith and her denomination and her lifestyle and her line of thinking and personality and whether or not she's weak or meek or all of these things. There's lots of different, there's lots of assumptions that come, right, with the covering, and it can make you feel very set apart in a not so peaceful way. But I learned that he was teaching me things all along the way. Long before that, in 2004, when I was just 25 years old, God started talking to me about the way that I dressed. I was 25. I had only had a few kids at that point. And I didn't dress, I wasn't the most modest dresser. I did try to dress for attention. I did try to gain attention by what I wore or didn't wear. And it was just one of those things that, it wasn't representing him well. And so he started talking to me about that and teaching me about modesty. I felt very convicted to just start wearing dresses and skirts, long, to my ankles, and, modest tops. And that was long before head covering ever came into the picture, but just cleaning up the way that I dressed, right? And I felt very convicted to only dress that way for a really long time. He was trying to teach me about modesty and femininity, right? And it wasn't a command for everyone. Nowhere in the word do we see, thou shalt only wear long skirts and dresses, but it was a conviction on my own heart, and it was used as a teaching tool. It was kind of maybe an extreme teaching tool, but it served to get me out of another extreme and eventually kind of center me in the middle, right? Now, over 20 years later, I still do wear mainly dresses and skirts, but I do it just because it's become my style. Not that I'm convicted, not that I feel God necessarily leading me to anymore. It's just the way that I dress, because I was able to develop those standards of modesty, and he used that extreme change in my wardrobe to sort of get me stabilized, right, in the place where he actually wanted me to be, and to teach me about obedience to his actual truths about modesty and femininity. In the circles I was in at the time, that style of dressing did seem kind of weird or too formal for every day. And I did have people making comments, concerning my, self-righteousness, or my, trying to stand out, or trying to be holier than them, or trying to whatever. It was, I got comments and I got, just that feeling that you get when you know that people are uncomfortable. And I did have to learn to sort of just keep walking and keep doing the next right thing. It's so funny to look back on that now because I don't have any of those feelings, right? But at the time, it was very uncomfortable. Before the spring of 2011, I knew nothing about head covering, but as soon as he revealed that to me there in 1 Corinthians 11, I did it. I didn't know why exactly I was doing it, but I felt led to do it, and so I did. It was important to be obedient. And while I was fairly inconsistent for a long time with covering because it was so uncomfortable and so awkward and so obvious and so strange, for the most part, I feel like my heart was to obey him more than it was to fit in, right? Little by little, I became more and more comfortable with it. And little by little, it became more and more of a style for me, right? Just the way I did things. And just about the time that I was totally cool with it is when he was like, yeah, you don't really have to do that. It's like, are you kidding me? It was a next level of obedience, right? A next step in his education, in his teaching me about obeying him, even when I feel like a weirdo, even when I am the outcast, even when I'm the only one doing it. That importance of obedience to him being more important than what everybody else has to say about it. In 2019, the Father started opening my eyes to what his instructions really are and where they can be found. And I started to learn more and more about the first 5 books of the Bible, which contain his instructions for living. It's called the Torah. It is the instructions that he gave to us and sort of solidified at Mount Sinai for all of his people to keep through all generations. When I was introduced to that instruction book, I felt so free. All of my questions, especially about head covering, were answered in one simple truth, and that is God gave us instructions. That's what we're to do. If he didn't give us those instructions, we better be praying about it, right? Because if we are looking at a teaching of man and we can't find that teaching in his commands, it's not a command, it's a conviction, right? It's a conviction of others that they're sharing with us, and then we need to prayerfully decide whether or not it's something that God wants us to take on for ourselves. That's where I landed with head covering. I couldn't find any instructions on head covering anywhere in his Torah, anywhere in the first 5 books of the Bible. I found examples of women wearing coverings, and I could kind of discern why that was a thing. We learn about Rebecca when she goes to meet Isaac, and as soon as she sees him, she puts on a covering and she enters into a marriage covenant with him. And I felt like that was her saying, okay, I do submit to this man that I've been given. I do submit to God's will in my marriage, and I will accept this, right? She puts on the covering as her symbol of submission, and then she goes forward. We see a similar idea in Numbers 5, and that is where we have kind of the test of the unfaithful woman. And when she goes up to have that test, performed on her, the priest removes her covering. She no longer is wearing a head covering. She no longer has that symbolic covering that was given by her husband or by her father. It is now just her bared before the Lord and raw, and she's got to face whatever consequences might come with her guilt, or she is able to stand strong and steady and stable in her innocence, right? But that covering is removed. There's nobody who's going to come and bail her out, right? And so that's how I see the covering sort of represented there. And that does go along with that submission, right? And just that ability to be protected by an earthly protector. So I definitely see the references to the head covering within the Torah, and I definitely think that it is a tool that the Father uses, yes. But nowhere does he command us to wear it. Nowhere does he say a woman must wear a head covering in any circumstance at all. So when we go further into 1 Corinthians 11, we find that Paul was establishing a teaching for his own congregations. He was establishing a practice for his own group of people that had come under his ministry by choice, right? And he was explaining these, customs and why it is done, and the protection and the understanding that it offers to you and to the people around you as they see you wearing it. A few years ago, I read a book full of head covering testimonies from Jewish women. If I can find that book, I will put a link in the description box if you guys want to check that out. But it was all these Jewish women talking about what the head covering means to them, why they wear it, maybe, just a testimony. And for some of them, it was about why they didn't wear one anymore. But for the most part, it was women, why they wear a head covering, what it means to them, how God's used it, etc. And I remember reading one of the stories, and the woman was talking about how when, as a married woman, she goes to the marketplace, when her head is covered, she's left alone. There aren't men trying to hit on her, right? There's not men whistling or bugging her because they know she's married. She's off limits. And the women with their hair exposed, or, their long flowing hair, exposed to everyone, they are the single women. They are the ones, that's the sign that they are available. And they are, possibly looking for a husband, but the covered women are not. And the covered women, they just want to go and get their stuff done and get back home, right? And so she said that she felt like the covering really gave her that sense of sort of just being protected from something that's not necessarily dangerous, but just unwanted attention, right? And I thought that was so great. And I have found that to be true as well. That unwanted attention really, really dropped off a lot in my younger years when I was getting attention. When I had a covering on, right? People just were like, it was uncomfortable, right? So you got left alone. But I thought that was a great reason for wearing a head covering. But during that time when God was showing me his instructions, I was just praying so hard, show me the truth. I want to know the truth. Whatever it is, I will do it. Just show me the truth. I'm so confused, right? I'm seeing one thing, I'm hearing another thing, I'm reading another thing. And it wasn't just about head covering, it was about other things as well. But it was also about head covering. It was something I struggled with so bad, trying to know if it was something that I must do or not. But finally, when I understood what the actual instructions were and where they were found, it was very freeing. I learned that Paul would have known it was against God's instructions to make up new commands. And Paul would have known during that time that he was not establishing a command for the churches. He was giving an encouragement and instruction for his own churches. And I guarantee you, if a woman showed up uncovered, Paul was not going to toss them out the back door. But it was just something that he was saying, hey, this is good for you guys. It'll be good for our society. It will be good for our community. And how others see us. It's going to be, safe for you in the marketplace, etc., etc. He was giving some instructions for that time that would be good for them. But Paul was never teaching it as a command. He never meant for it to be taken as a command, and God never gave it as a command. And that just really solidified such an understanding for me. And after that, when I wore a head covering, I just did it because I liked it. I did it because I liked the way it made me feel. I did it because I liked the way that it made me act, right? I felt like I was better representing God when I had a head covering on, because it helped me keep my spirit in check. It helped me keep my mouth in check. It helped me to, I knew that everybody who saw me wearing it was going to see me as a godly woman, as someone who loved God and wanted to obey him. So it would remind me, hey, you better act like someone who loves God and wants to obey him, because you're wearing this head covering and everyone can see, right? And so it just helped me to sort of keep my act together, really. I learned that when I read something in the Word, but I can't find it actually coming from God's mouth in his instructions, that it's something I do need to take to prayer, because it may be a conviction he wants me to take on, and it may not be. All that time of feeling convicted to change the way I dress, to wear a head covering, to avoid certain activities that I saw other Christians engaging in, the Father was using all that time to teach me about obedience to him, even to the point of feeling persecuted, even to the point of feeling awkward and weird and lonely and like I was the only one. He wanted me to be obedient no matter what. And when I did that, I experienced more freedom. And it also opened up the door to me understanding more about what he actually does require and what he doesn't. Now I do things like keep biblical holy days, wear tzitzit, eat clean, observe a Sabbath rest. I do things that are very different from mainstream Christianity, and I do face some opinions about that. But I'm able to have a better, have a stronger backbone. I'm able to have a better answer and a kinder answer, a gentler answer. I don't have to answer. And I'm learning that. I don't have to put myself out there. I don't have to give people access. I don't have to answer everyone's questions. All I really have to do is know what he requires of me and then obey him. And listen carefully in case he wants to change my course a little. The head covering journey and all that came before and after it has really served to help me understand true obedience and the difference between God's words and man's words. And it is helping to prepare me for further persecution down the road. Because the closer we walk to him and the more this world walks away, the more trials we are going to face. Yeshua gave us some words regarding all of that in the book of Matthew. I'm going to read a couple of verses for you guys real quick. The first one is Matthew 10:16-20, which says, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils and scourge you in their synagogues. You will be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, do not worry about how or what you should speak, for it will be given to you in that hour what you should speak. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you." In verse 34, he says, "Do not think that I come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me." he also gives some words about this topic of persecution in chapter 24 of Matthew. And it's all just to warn us and let us know you're not going to be popular in this world the closer you get to me. The more you walk like me, the less this world is going to accept you. Be prepared and be ready. And I think that is what God used the head covering for in my life, was to help me be prepared and ready for all of the other awkward, weird, persecuting sort of situations that I was going to face in the future and probably still will. He used it as a tool to teach me, and I'm really thankful for that. Before I close out, I do want to point out something that I think is important and kind of gets overlooked. I've never seen this in a head covering video before. I've actually never seen a head covering video before that sort of talks about it in a positive way without necessarily saying you should wear it. But anyway, I'll be the weird one. I want to show you guys this. So this is, if you're not familiar, this is an example of the tassels from Numbers chapter 15. In the end of Numbers 15, God gives us an instruction to wear a tassel, or in Hebrew it's called tzitzit, and to wear this on the edges of our garment, of our outer garment. And each tassel is supposed to have one blue thread. So as you can see, I've got all kinds of different colors in here, but there is a blue thread wound in. And the blue thread is symbolic of his instructions, of his law and Torah, and it is to remind us to obey him, to remind us to keep his commandments and his law. It's to remind us of all of those things that I wore the head covering for, right? The kind of character I'm supposed to have, the way I'm supposed to treat people, the way that I'm supposed to walk like Yeshua, right? And just to keep myself in check. That's why I wore the head covering. This is the actual accessory that he has commanded for us to wear. And so I do wear these all the time. While I don't wear a head covering anymore, except just if I think it looks cute that day, I do wear the tassels all the time because this was an actual command. It can be found in his law. It is from his mouth, and therefore I need to do it, right? To be obedient. And back in the day when I was learning about the head covering, and especially back in the day when I was learning about the modest dressing, I never in a million years would have even thought of the idea of wearing tassels. But then when I read that in Numbers 15, I realized, oh, that's what he's given us. He has given us a symbol that we can wear that will help remind us of the kind of character we're supposed to be having and the way we are supposed to be walking, which can all be found within his instructions, within his law in the first 5 books of the Bible. My video going into depth on the tassels on the tzitzit also was one that I deleted, but I am planning to make a new one. I think that's a really important topic for conversation, and I do get a lot of questions about that. So I'll do that one soon. But today I just wanted to talk to you about head covering, answer some of those questions that I get often and that I see asked often. If you are interested in head coverings and you think that you do want to wear one, if you're feeling convicted, the Father is leading you in that way. There are several great shops online that sell head coverings. If you want to go to Etsy, you will find several different women on there selling head coverings. I have a head covering shop. I will put the link in the description box if you want to check that out and try some out, because they're fun and they're cute, and in a lot of cases they are something that the Father uses as a good tool for teaching us about obedience to him and getting over our fear of men. So I hope that was encouraging and inspiring, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.